Hello and welcome back to our next, or actually our first class in our DC tools series on how we're going to be able to set up our EC or ECT torque controller and tool. So again, welcome to our first class. And if you joined us for our preview, my name is David Cash. I'm one of the members of the marketing team here, and I'll be guiding you through the simple setup of the controller and the tool. We'll take a look at some of the programming functions. We'll look at the navigation to get through the menu, and we'll take a look at a number of the ports and all of that as we move forward. In our kind of opening meeting, we talked about some of the error-proofing features of the DC tool, how they can be applied in everyday assembly. We'll go ahead and we will take a look at that functionality when we do some of the programming and a few of the other items. But that's what we covered earlier, and how we can use this particular tool in the error-proofing process. So coming up as we look at the setup, we're going to talk a little bit about the functions of the system, the ports and the connections that we have on here. Again, the menu navigation. We'll talk a little bit about the digital inputs and outputs, and also the system does come with software that is included, where you can do a lot of the programming on the PC, and we'll touch on that in a little bit later in one of the other classes. But that software is included with the purchase of the unit. There are no restrictions on licensing fees. So you can use this on a number of different systems or a number of different computers, and you don't have to worry about any licensing or additional fees that may result from the use of software. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We're going to go and take a look at the controller. The controller is predominantly a vertical application with the screen here. So the first thing, the dimensions of the unit, it is about 10 inches tall and about 7 inches deep and 6 1/4 inches wide. We do have items that come with the system are going to be a mounting bracket. So on the rear of the unit, it does come standard with a bracket that you can use to mount this onto a workpiece or work fixture on the assembly. We also have available stands to be able to put the controller on as an accessory. And there is one additional feature as we look at the backside of the system. All of the connections and ports are underneath, and I'll show you those here in just a second. But right on the side here, we have this little door that is enclosed with a fastener here. The system itself does allow for data capture, so we can collect the different types of events that happen, whether it be the torque data, if there is a change in a preset, if there's an error. All of that information can be gathered, and it can be stored internally on an SD card that is within the system. That information can also be exported through the communication ports that we have on here. And let's go ahead and take a look at those. So on the bottom of the unit is where we have our connections for our particular points. So we have our RS-232 port right here. We have our 25-pin input and output connection. Next to that is going to be our Ethernet port. Down lower section here is where we would plug in our cable for the driver. And then we have our power supply and the on-off button for the unit. So all of these connections are here on the bottom of the tool through this little notch that is in the back of the tool. So that is the different connection points that we have for the system. You know, when we talk about some of the functionality of these, the tool itself, it's designed to be an airproofing piece of equipment that will allow you to be able to not only reach a desired torque that you may have, but then we can also do additional layers of airproofing within that one assembly. And so let me just go ahead and I will switch out the connected unit. All right. And so at first, when we power the system on, it is going to boot up into an operation mode here. We have our preset values. Let's make one adjustment here. Let's see that a little better. Okay, so when I mentioned the airproofing function, that's one aspect of this particular controller. We also mentioned the fact that we do have the ability to capture torque data and event data that happens during the process. We also have the ability to link a barcode or a product ID to that data, and that can be done through the use of a barcode scanner. We also have the ability to have 15 different preset values within the range of one specific tool. So in essence, we have 15 different tools being replaced with one unit. And so that's just some of the functionality that we have with the controller itself. The system is designed to show us which preset we're using here. Then it's also going to tell us what our torque value is. And then we have information that is displayed for the actual rundown that may have happened, or if it's part of a job or a model function. And we'll get into that as it relates to that particular function in our advanced programming section that's coming up in the next session. But we just want to take a look here at the navigation at first. And so if I make just a quick adjustment here so we can get the top of the screen as well. Very nice. All right, so with the screen here, it is a touch screen. So there are certain things that we can go ahead and select on the unit. If we select our preset, we can come in and we can choose from the 15 different presets that we have available. There's also a multi-sequence A and a multi-sequence B. We'll talk about that in the next session. But we can come in and we can select which preset we would like to use. If you want this feature to be one that is selected automatically, that is something that can be done either through the input and output communication from a PLC, or it can be done through a barcode scanner, or it could be done with another input device to be able to select that program, such as a bit socket tray, where the socket tray itself is the master. So when a bit is pulled from that socket tray, the corresponding preset will automatically be connected. So those are some of the things as it relates to the preset. So how do we actually get into the menu function? Up on the top here, you'll see we have these 4 little squares. This is going to let us attempt to log into the system. So it is password protected. We do have to have the correct password. The default password that comes with the unit is 0. If we go ahead and hit enter, that's going to bring us into the menu function. And move in here a little bit. And so right now, we've got basically 4 separate windows that we can navigate through. The first one that I'll bring to your attention is going to be our settings menu. This is where we set things like the date and time. We also have where we would enter in or teach our barcode in there. That's going to be, again, another class. We also have information regarding the amount of storage that is on the system. Again, there is an SD card that is connected to the, or that's in the controller. So if we are having data sent to that card, we can come in here and we can see how much room is available. It is expandable up to 32 gigabytes, which is going to be a tremendous amount of storage. The files that are generated by the data are very, very small, minuscule values that can be parsed via a CVS or CSV file. So they're very small. So there's a lot of storage that is available here. But we can come in and we can change our date and our time. And then we have options as it relates to the brightness of the screen, how loud we would like the buttons sound when we touch the screen to be. So that's kind of all what's happening in our settings menu. Up above that, we have our remote tab. Now, this is, let's see if we can get a little bit better there. So in the remote tab, this gives us the ability to come in and we could select a preset that we would like to do. We can go ahead and we can run the tool and we can put it into the listening position. And this is helpful if we're doing some testing, either for inputs or outputs, or something where we just need to supply power to the tool for that particular preset. It could also be used in a fixture type of device, or if we're doing some process control, something like that. But this is in the remote section. We have an auto customization feature, which helps us to basically be as efficient as possible during a rundown. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the upcoming class. We can go ahead and we can back up our system if we like, and we can restore it here. We have our power reset and a factory reset in our remote tab. The next menu is going to be our monitoring menu. In here, we can take a look at a couple of different things. We can look at the last 8 errors that the system has generated, if we would like to do that. We also have the ability to look at our network settings. So again, we have the ability for the controller to be placed onto a network through the Ethernet port that can be accessed through another PC with the software on that network. So you can dial in basically to a specific controller. You could update presets. You can change programming. You can do everything that you can do on the screen, you can do in the software, plus a little bit more. But you do have that ability here through the network. You can also access the machine through the RS-232 port. So that is available as well. And another good feature about these units, you can access them with them being on a network. via a web server. So each controller has its own web server built into it. So you just log into the IP address for that particular tool, and you can go in and you can modify presets and do updates that way. So there are a number of different ways that we can connect to the controller remotely. And so those are the different ways we can do that. We also have our inputs and outputs. So we're monitoring basically the different signals that are coming in and going out from the controller. I don't have any peripherals hooked up to this unit here, other than we do have output signals that are being generated right now by the tool. It's in basically a ready state, and this is one of our inputs and outputs. If I run the tool, you can see the output changes to the running mode. And then we also have, if that was a good fastening, okay fastening, and all of those inputs and outputs are assignable. So depending on the pin configuration of the communication that you're working with, you have that ability to set those particular inputs and outputs. So in our monitoring tab, we do have that. And the last is going to be our graph function. So in this case, we have the ability to actually do a graph rundown of a specific fastening joint. There are two different channels that we can monitor. So the first channel we have here, bring this in here. So our first channel we have here is our torque. We can also add another channel to this, which could be angle, it could be current. We could monitor a number of different items, but we can then just simply hit start. And then as we run the tool, you can see it's going to generate a graph of that specific rundown. So this is really, really helpful when we're using this with the PC software. We can get a lot more granular with the data. But on the controller here, it's going to give us a very good representation of what's happening with that specific joint. So this is scaled here. We have our angle, and then this is the torque that the system was picking up just from the motor here. So this is a very small scale, as it were. But if this was going to be on a larger system, or we would see that value be a lot smaller in that particular scenario. So we can just hit stop and we can come back out. And so basically that is the monitoring tab, and that gives us the information regarding the different items that we can monitor. Next is going to be the parameter menu. And this is where we can go ahead and we can look at the different presets that we have. We can also look at the different controls that relate to the actual controller itself. Take a look at some of the network settings as well. Here. Okay, so with the different items here, our fastening tab is going to be our first screen here. Back this up. On this screen are going to be the different types of methods that we can use for the controller. It's going to be our torque control with angle monitoring, or we can do angle control with torque monitoring. So those are our two different tightening strategies that we can use. We have down on the bottom here, you can see that this is preset 1 of 15. And there are 2 pages to this particular setting. If we wanted to set a torque value for this particular preset, a preset 1, we can come in and we can select the torque control with angle monitoring. We can then put in our preset that we would like. If we say 5 or 10, excuse me. Now we've adjusted our torque value. We can come in and we can set our input, or excuse me, our target torque for the angle monitoring. So we have those values here, and we can do that for all of the different presets we have, all the way up through 15. So that's going to give us that ability, and that's how we can go ahead and we can set our presets. So that's about as far as I'm going to go with what we have for this session. I'll go ahead and ask if there's any questions right now, and we will then move on to the rest of the items in the next session here at 1:30. So Casey, do we have any questions at this point? If you do have questions, you can type them into the chat and we can go from there.
Nothing yet, but let's give them a couple minutes.
All right.
All right, Dave, I'm thinking you must be really good at explaining because I do not see any questions coming in here.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so feel free to join us again at 1:30 Eastern for the next installment. We're going to be looking at doing some of the advanced programming. We'll go into a little bit more of some of the control features and do a little bit more as it relates to programming this particular tool. So we'll see you then. Thanks so much.
Hey, Dave, it looks like we did just get one question in. It's from Ken. At some point, are we going to be able to see the remote screen view?
The remote screen. Remote. From the software or on the controller?
Says when you access the device from the network controller.
Okay, yeah, that will be with the software, and that will be either in the next session or we may do that in tomorrow's session as well. So we can show that as what that interface would look like by using software.
All right, sounds good, Dave. Everybody, will see you in about or at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. See you guys then.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.